Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world where the measure of one's worth is often sought through the eyes of others. The fleeting praise of society, the fleeting affirmation of peers, and the endless pursuit of approval. These are the things we are told to seek. Yet, let us pause and reflect on a deeper truth. True worth is not defined by external validation, but by the quiet, steadfast knowledge of who we are within. It is easy to be lost in the noise of comparison. How often do we find ourselves measuring our success, our abilities, and our very essence against those around us? The person who seems more talented, more successful, more admired. Yet, here lies the folly of such comparison, for it fails to acknowledge the unique nature of each soul. A man who is constantly looking over his shoulder at the accomplishments of others fails to see the rich and vast potential within himself. Each of us carries within us a value that is not dependent on what others think or how others measure us. It is innate, woven into the fabric of our very being, and it is in knowing and understanding this worth that we find our true power. This knowledge is not born of pride or arrogance, but of self-respect, a respect that does not waver with the changing tides of popular opinion. When we understand our worth, we begin to live not by the standards imposed upon us by others, but by the standards we set for ourselves. Our actions become intentional, driven by purpose rather than the desire to prove something to someone else. We become the masters of our own journey, unshaken by external judgments, for we know that we are enough as we are. In knowing our worth, we are able to extend grace to others, for it is only when we understand our own value that we can truly appreciate the value of those around us. When we stand tall in our own self-worth, we do not seek to diminish others in order to elevate ourselves. Instead, we encourage others to stand tall beside us. The power of knowing your worth is not in an inflated sense of self-importance, but in a quiet confidence that comes from understanding that you have something unique to offer. It is in standing tall, not out of pride, but out of the deep knowledge that your presence in this world matters, that you are not here by accident, but with purpose. Understanding one's worth is a cornerstone of personal growth and fulfillment. It is not a boastful recognition of superiority over others, but a humble acknowledgement of one's intrinsic value, capabilities, and the potential to contribute to the world. This concept of self-worth is deeply rooted in self-awarenessness, the ability to reflect honestly on who we are, what we stand for, and what we bring to the table. It is easy to look for our worth in the opinions and judgments of others, yet real self-worth stems from an internal compass that tells us we are enough, just as we are. Self-awareness is the first step toward recognizing one's worth. It requires the ability to look inward and assess our strengths, values, and the areas where we may need improvement. This is not a process of self-criticism or self-congratulation, but a clear-eyed view of who we are as individuals. Too often, people fail to see their worth because they do not take the time to examine their own qualities objectively. They are too focused on external expectations, societal pressures, or the achievements of others, losing sight of the fact that their own value is not determined by how they compare to someone else. In understanding our worth, we come to see that it is not tied to transient circumstances or external validations. Our value does not hinge on the approval of others, the successes we accumulate, or the praise we receive. These external factors can be fleeting, and they are often dependent on changing opinions and perceptions. By relying on external sources to define our worth, we risk being caught in a never-ending cycle of seeking validation and never feeling fully satisfied. True worth, however, is unshaken by external forces. It resides within us, impervious to the shifting tides of public opinion or success. This does not mean that we should ignore feedback or the perspectives of others, but rather that we should learn to filter their opinions through the lens of our own self-understanding. Criticism, when it comes from a place of constructive intention, can be valuable for growth. However, it must never be allowed to define our worth. We must develop the wisdom to accept helpful feedback while maintaining an unwavering sense of who we are and what we are capable of achieving. When we begin to understand our worth, we also begin to appreciate our own potential. Each of us has unique abilities and qualities that, when recognized and nurtured, can lead to remarkable achievements. It is in this understanding that we find the strength to push beyond our perceived limitations, to try new things, and to embrace challenges. When we know that we have inherent value, we are more likely to take risks and pursue opportunities that align with our values and passions. We no longer fear failure in the same way, because we recognize that our worth is not tied to success or failure. It is constant and unchanging. Knowing your worth allows you to set healthy boundaries. When you understand that you deserve respect and kindness, you are better able to establish the boundaries that protect your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. This applies not only to interactions with others, but also to how you manage your own time and energy. A person who knows their worth is less likely to settle for less than they deserve, whether in relationships, work environments, or personal pursuits. This understanding empowers them to make choices that align with their values, without fear of disappointing others or feeling guilty for prioritizing their own needs. Understanding your worth opens the door to living a more authentic life. When we are unaware of our value, we tend to hide parts of ourselves or conform to what others expect of us. This can lead to a life of dissatisfaction as we become disconnected from our true selves. However, when we recognize our intrinsic worth, we are no longer afraid to express ourselves fully. We embrace our uniqueness and no longer feel the need to fit into a mold created by others. We are free to pursue the things that bring us joy, to speak our truths, and to be unapologetically ourselves. This internal understanding of worth is also essential when it comes to overcoming challenges and setbacks. Life is filled with obstacles, and at times we may feel that our value is diminished by the hardships we face. Yet it is during these moments that our self-worth becomes even more crucial. When we know our worth, we are better equipped to handle adversity. We understand that our challenges do not define us. They are merely part of the journey. Knowing that we are inherently valuable, we are able to face difficulties with resilience and a sense of purpose, knowing that we have the capacity to overcome them. Understanding your worth is a transformative process that shapes how you interact with the world and how you view yourself. It is a lifelong journey of self-discovery, where you continuously uncover new layers of your potential and begin to fully embrace your capacity to make a meaningful impact. This understanding is not born of ego or self-centeredness, but of a quiet confidence that stems from the recognition that you have something important to offer the world, simply by being who you are. And when you live with this awareness, you not only unlock your own potential, but also inspire those around you to do the same. The dangers of comparison are pervasive in modern life. With the rise of social media, the constant stream of information, and the visible successes of others, it has become almost impossible to avoid comparing ourselves to those around us. Yet, this habit of comparison can be one of the most damaging things we do to our sense of self-worth. It creates a distorted view of reality, one in which we measure our value against the lives of others, rather than recognizing and embracing our own unique journey. When we compare ourselves to others, we are often comparing our worst moments to their best. It is easy to look at someone else's achievements, possessions, or relationships and feel as though we are falling short in some way. Social media, in particular, amplifies this tendency, offering a curated version of reality in which people display only their successes and highlights. We are rarely shown the full picture, the struggles, the failures, or the setbacks that are part of every person's story. Yet despite this incomplete picture, we continue to measure our lives against these idealized versions of others' lives, leading to feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt. This constant comparison can lead to a sense of failure, even when there is no real reason for such feelings. We begin to measure our worth based on arbitrary standards, such as the number of followers we have, the size of our house, or the title of our job. We forget that these external markers of success do not define our true value. They are often fleeting and dependent on external circumstances that are beyond our control. By focusing on these measures, we miss the richness of our own lives and the unique path we are on. One of the most harmful aspects of comparison is that it leads to self-judgment. When we see someone else succeeding, we might wonder why we are not achieving the same things. We may ask ourselves why we are not as capable, as talented, or as lucky as those around us. This self-criticism can erode our self-esteem, making it difficult to recognize our own strengths and accomplishments. We may start to believe that we are somehow deficient or that we are not doing enough, when in fact we are simply following a different timeline or pursuing a different kind of success. Comparison can also foster resentment and jealousy. When we feel that others have something we lack, we may begin to harbor negative feelings toward them, not realizing that their success does not diminish our own potential. It is easy to fall into the trap of thinking that there is a limited amount of success, love, or happiness to go around, when in reality, the universe has infinite room for growth and fulfillment for each individual. By comparing ourselves to others, we inadvertently diminish our own capacity to celebrate their success, and we rob ourselves of the joy that comes from seeing others thrive. The more we compare, the more we lose sight of our own progress. Every individual is on a unique path, and the timeline of one person's life is not the same as another's. Success is not a one-size-fits-all concept. What one person values or measures as success may look very different from what another person values. When we measure our worth by the success of others, we fail to acknowledge the importance of our own journey, and each step forward, no matter how small, is a victory in itself, and comparing those steps to the leaps taken by others overlooks the effort and determination behind our own progress. Comparison can also blind us to the beauty of our own individuality. Each person brings something different to the world. We have our own experiences, perspectives, talents, and dreams that are uniquely ours. When we constantly compare ourselves to others, we devalue the very qualities that make us distinct. We begin to conform to an idealized version of success or happiness, and in doing so, we lose touch with who we truly are. It is only when we stop comparing ourselves to others that we can begin to fully appreciate our own worth and the value we bring to the world. This constant cycle of comparison also undermines the sense of community and collaboration. When we focus on competing with others, we miss opportunities for connection and support. Instead of lifting each other up, we may feel threatened by the success of others, which can create an environment of isolation and division. However, when we move away from comparison and embrace collaboration, we begin to see the potential for shared growth. Success is not a finite resource. When we support one another and celebrate each other's accomplishments, we create a positive cycle that benefits everyone involved. One of the most liberating things we can do for our mental and emotional well-being is to stop comparing ourselves to others. This does not mean that we should ignore the successes of those around us, but rather that we should learn to see them as inspiration rather than competition. When we stop comparing, we allow ourselves the space to grow in our own way, at our own pace, without the pressure of meeting someone else's expectations or conforming to someone else's timeline. Instead of measuring ourselves against the accomplishments of others, we should measure ourselves against our own progress. What are the goals we have set for ourselves? What steps have we taken to improve and grow? By focusing on our own journey, we can appreciate how far we've come, rather than constantly measuring ourselves against an idealized version of someone else's life. Comparison is a thief of joy, but self-reflection and self-acceptance are keys to unlocking a life filled with purpose, fulfillment, and peace. Empowerment through knowledge is one of the most transformative aspects of understanding and embracing one's worth. Knowledge, in this context, refers not only to academic learning or the accumulation of facts, but to a deeper understanding of oneself, the world, and the way we interact with both. It is the foundation upon which we build self-consciousness, self-respect, and the ability to navigate life's challenges with grace and resilience. Knowledge empowers us to recognize our potential, make informed decisions, and act with purpose. The process of empowerment through knowledge begins with self-awareness. By understanding who we are, our strengths, weaknesses, values, and passions, we unlock the potential for personal growth and fulfillment. When we know ourselves, we can confidently pursue the things that align with our true selves, rather than following paths dictated by external expectations or societal pressures. This self-awareness is the first step toward realizing our worth. It allows us to see the unique qualities that we bring to the table and the areas in which we can continue to grow and evolve. It is only through this deep understanding that we are able to tap into our full potential and recognize the impact we can have on the world around us. Knowledge also empowers us to make informed decisions. In today's fast-pacing world, we are constantly bombarded with information. However, the ability to discern what is true, valuable, and relevant is a skill that comes from a deep understanding of ourselves and the world. Knowledge allows us to weigh our options and make choices that align with our values, rather than acting impulsively or reacting to the pressures of the moment. When we are knowledgeable, we are able to see the bigger picture and act with intention, rather than being swept along by the currents of external influences. This empowerment through knowledge gives us the confidence to take control of our lives and shape our own destinies. Knowledge allows us to break free from limiting beliefs and negative thought patterns. Many of the barriers we face in life are self-imposed. We may believe that we are not capable of achieving certain goals, or that we are unworthy of success, love, or happiness. These beliefs often stem from a lack of knowledge about ourselves, about the possibilities available to us, or about the power of perseverance and resilience. Through learning and gaining new insights, we can challenge these limiting beliefs and replace them with empowering truths. When we understand that we have the capacity to learn, grow, and adapt, we realize that no challenge is insurmountable, and no dream is out of reach. Knowledge also provides the tools we need to overcome challenges and setbacks. Life is full of obstacles, and we are all bound to face difficulties at some point. However, it is our knowledge and the skills we acquire that equip us to handle adversity with strength and resilience. When we understand the nature of a problem and have the tools to solve it, we are less likely to feel overwhelmed or defeated. Knowledge empowers us to approach challenges with a problem-solving mindset, rather than seeing them as insurmountable roadblocks. This shift in perspective is critical to personal empowerment. Rather than being paralyzed by fear or doubt, we are able to take proactive steps toward overcoming the difficulties in our path. Knowledge allows us to build stronger relationships and communicate more effectively with others. When we understand ourselves, our emotions, and the perspectives of others, we are able to connect on a deeper level. This understanding fosters empathy, compassion, and respect, which are essential for building healthy, supportive relationships. Knowledge also helps us to navigate conflicts and misunderstandings, enabling us to find common ground and work towards solutions that benefit everyone involved. As we grow in knowledge, we become more effective communicators, able to express our thoughts and feelings clearly while also listening attentively to the needs of others. This creates an environment of trust and mutual respect, where everyone feels valued and understood. Knowledge empowers us to take responsibility for our own lives. We live in a world where many people feel disempowered by circumstances, believing that they have little control over their own futures. However, when we acquire knowledge, we gain the tools to take charge of our own destinies. This can involve learning new skills, expanding our understanding of the world, or seeking out new opportunities. Knowledge allows us to see that we are not victims of our circumstances, but active participants in shaping our lives. By taking ownership of our actions and decisions, we reclaim our power and create the life we desire. Empowerment through knowledge also allows us to give back to others. As we learn and grow, we are better equipped to help those around us, whether through sharing our knowledge, offering guidance, or supporting others on their own journeys. We become a source of strength and inspiration for others. The more we learn, the more we can contribute to the collective knowledge and well-being of our communities. In this way, knowledge not only empowers us individually, but it also creates a ripple effect that spreads out to those around us, fostering a sense of connection and collective growth. Knowledge helps us to embrace change and uncertainty. The world is constantly evolving, and the ability to adapt is one of the most important skills we can develop. With knowledge, we gain the confidence to navigate new challenges and seize new opportunities. We are no longer bound by the fear of the unknown, but empowered to face whatever comes our way with curiosity and an open mind. Knowledge enables us to approach change as a natural part of life, rather than something to be feared or resisted. The empowerment that comes from knowledge is transformative. It is a process that allows us to see the world with clearer eyes, to recognize our own value, and to take purposeful action in our lives. When we understand our worth and the power that knowledge provides, we are able to live with greater confidence, resilience, and purpose. Knowledge is the key that unlocks the doors to our potential, and through it, we are able to create lives that are aligned with our values, dreams, and desires. It is through this ongoing process of learning and growth that we become the fullest version of ourselves, empowered to make a lasting impact in the world.